Light is an amazing gift from God. It's quite clear that God has created us as human beings to thrive and to benefit greatly from this resource. The ebb and flow of daylight helps us to establish our wake and sleep cycles. Exposure to light reduces stress and depression. Sunlight, it offers much needed vitamin D, which helps our bodies to function properly, and so much more. Needless to say, we need light. So, when Jesus declares that he is the light of the world, in what sense is he light? We understand the great importance that light has for our life, but why does Jesus refer to himself as light? Let's take a few moments to explore this important question today. Welcome to Thursday Theological Thought. I'm so glad you joined me today. We're continuing in our series on the Gospel of John, where we're taking a look at one point from each chapter and discussing its importance in our life, the life of the church, and surely its importance in the world. Today, we've arrived at chapter 8 in John's Gospel. And in chapter 8, verse 12, Jesus makes the astounding claim, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." So what I would like to do is to look at three distinct and concrete ways that Jesus is light, because this can be difficult to understand. We have to ask ourselves, like I did a moment ago, in what sense is he light? What's he intending to communicate with this declaration? Before jumping into the 3 points, I find it helpful to have a little context behind Jesus' words here, to see what's happening when he's saying these things. Jesus makes this statement during what is known as the Feast of Tabernacles, or Ingathering. God established this feast to be celebrated during the fall of each year. It essentially had two purposes. On the one hand, it was a celebration of the harvest, an opportunity to rejoice in the providential care of God and yet again providing food for his people to eat. And on the other hand, God called his people to live in huts, or in Hebrew, sukkot. This was a reminder of their ancestors' living conditions during the time of their wilderness wanderings, where, as God says in the book of Leviticus, they lived in Sukkot, in these huts. One scholar highlights the dual nature of this festival in the following way. The ingathering of the autumn harvest gave hope to those who had seen Yahweh's covenant love reward their labors, just as living for 7 days in a tabernacle or hut gave perspective on their humble past and how Yahweh had preserved them through the desert years. While we could debate the idea that the harvest was a reward of their labors as opposed to a gift that flowed from God's love as they go about the work that he gave them of tilling, planting, etc., nevertheless, the point is well taken about the dual nature of the festival. Now, to the point about light. One of the aspects of Israel's 7-day tabernacle festival, at least during the time of Jesus, was a ceremony where massive lampstands were lit in the court of women near the temple. This was a reminder of what God had done for his people in the past, notably in the Exodus from Egypt, and all that he promised to do in the future. With this introduction, let's get started with number 1. So the first significant aspect of light in association with this festival and its celebration of light has to do with God's presence. Remember, the Festival of Tabernacles was a recollection and a remembrance of what God did for their ancestors in the wilderness following the Exodus. So you might ask, well, what does light have to do with the Exodus? Here's what we read in Exodus chapter 13. "And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, that they might travel by day and by night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night did not depart from before the people." God was present and active through these means of light. Second, and closely related to the first, is light is equated with God's saving activity. Light and salvation for God's people go hand in hand throughout Scripture. Think back again to the Exodus story, particularly Exodus chapter 14. When Israel arrives at the Red Sea, they're trapped. Pharaoh and his army are on one side, the Red Sea's on the other, and it's at that point we're told, again in Exodus 14, that the pillar of cloud moved and it served as a barrier between Israel and the Egyptian army that night. But get this, The cloud lit up the night. Then the next day, when Israel crossed the sea, the pillar of fire threw the Egyptian army into a panic, enabling Israel to safely cross. God's light. He was present and he saved. And that's simply one example. God's light, equating to his salvation and deliverance, occur time and time again. Take Psalm 44 verse 3 for instance. Notice the psalmist's use of light when describing God's victory over Israel's enemies, thus successfully bringing them into the land which God gave them as a gift. For not by their own sword did they win the land, nor did their own arm save them, but your right hand and your arm and the light of your face, for you delighted in them. How did God save them? By the strength of God's arm and the light of his face. One biblical scholar wonderfully comments on the description of God's activity within this psalm in this way: light is Yahweh in action. Lastly, point 3, following Jesus means leaving the darkness. When Jesus states that he is the light of the world, he follows that declaration with the invitation to follow him. And those who do, he promises, will never walk in darkness. Notice the language of following the light. This is exactly what Israel did in the wilderness as the pillar of fire led God's people to the promised land. To follow, to listen, to believe in Jesus results in the assurance that you have been delivered. Delivered from the darkness of sin and death and made a part of his kingdom. His blessed kingdom, characterized by life and light. Paul reminds us that through faith in Jesus, the Father has delivered us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son. He who is the light of the world continues to shine for you. He is light for you in every dark day. He is hope when you are lost in darkness. In him we have strength to walk as children of the light, as we await with hope, as Paul says, the inheritance of the saints in light. That's our Thursday Theological Thought. I thank you so much for joining me. Christ's peace be with you.